Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on porch time again this morning. Got to hurry up this morning, got some rain coming in here, trying to get it done before the dampness gets to the camera system outside. I wanted to talk today about natural disasters, pestilences, and blights. Seems to be seems to be a very interesting topic right now. And guys, let me tell you something. This is nothing new. All right, that's one of the things we have to understand is that this is not something that's just started. And what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about how it affects our human life here where we live at, how it affects our jobs, how it affects everything about us. One of the first things I want to talk about is let me say this first. I was going to name this something else. I was going to name this this video "Separating the Men from the Boys," but I got to doing some research and looking. If I do that, there's a very high probability that this video would be demonetized, just because of the gender issue, and that is so sad. That is just pathetic, is what it is. It's pathetic. But not to fear, we're still going to do this. I'm just not going to call it that. We're going to call it, you know, natural disaster, diseases, and blights instead of separating the men from the boys. Okay. One of the things. As I begin to think about this, I come to the realization that how much things has changed just in the last 40 years and how it has affected our lives here. Now, understand, I'm going to be talking about where I live. I'm not talking about where you live. I'm talking about where I live. What I've seen and what I've experienced happening here. One of the first things that I began to think about was the dairies being shut down. Where I live at used to be huge dairy everywhere. There was farms, there was dairies all over the place. And oh gosh, back in the 80s, I think it was, may have been even earlier than the 80s. It's kind of hard for me to remember now. The government came in and shut down all the dairies in the southern part of Mississippi here. And they subsidized them. In other words, they paid them to shut down. Now, I've talked to some of the dairy farmers, and they told me that it was about controlling the price of milk. There was just too many dairy farms. And I thought to myself, I'm like, if you're going to be sustainable as a nation, wouldn't you want more of something so that in the event something happened somewhere else, you had something to fall back on? Don't we want more milk than we consume to keep the prices down? And I realize that it's all about controlling money. I do understand that. And that people wanted more and more and more money, and basically ended up being into huge, more corporations become formed because of it, and it gave the government more control over another one of the industries in our country that controlled our food system. So, you know, dairy was one of those things that, first things that come to my mind. And as many of the dairy farmers began to shut down, they had to begin to look for work in other areas, which meant that strains were put on other types of businesses around. Lots of people sold their farms and just relocated. And when that happens, guess what? Realtors really go crazy because they get these huge tracts of land at really good prices, and they start blocking them up, putting roads in them, because most of them are pastures. They don't have to do anything, and they start building subdivisions. And that is what happened with a lot of our dairy farms around where I live at. Now, not only has it been dairy farms, but the chicken house industry here where I live at used to be big. Used to, there was chicken houses everywhere you went. But because of climate change and natural disasters, insurance companies will no longer insure a chicken house south of Highway 26 in southern Mississippi. So all chicken houses moved way north of Highway 26, and they may in the last few years even moved it further north than that, because I'm now not even seeing any chicken houses north of Highway 26. I've got to go all the way up to, gosh, above Hattiesburg now. Another 45 miles further north. Maybe it's 84 now in north. I don't know, but I know it used to be 26 because of natural disasters was doing too much damage to chicken houses, and insurance companies was losing too much money, so they passed a decree saying that they could be none south of Highway 26 or they would not insure them anymore. So what did that do? That put more people out of work, and they had to go looking for work in other places. And these places that had built chicken houses had to have them tore down. People couldn't afford the taxes. I know one particular piece of property I was looking at had 5 abandoned chicken houses on them, and the man told me his taxes were like $50,000 a year because of the chicken houses that's on them. I said, but they're not productive. He says, it doesn't matter. I still have to pay the taxes, and I can't keep paying this. I've got to get rid of these chicken houses. I've got to sell the land now because I'm too old to tear them down. And it just blew me away at how much society is still taking land from these older people who had all this land. And what happens is realtors come in and buy this. They bring in big companies, they tear all this stuff down, they start subdividing all this land and making subdivisions again. And guys, that's what's happening more and more where I'm living at. It's becoming more of a retirement place than it is a place to just live and survive. Another thing that I was thinking about, when you go into the town where I live, just north of me here, Wiggins, in Perkinston, McHenry, all these towns around me here, you see massive pecan orchards everywhere that are just sitting vacant. What happened? Because this was a thriving pecan industry here at one particular time in history. Well, there was a natural disaster called Hurricane Camille. Hurricane Camille came in and done so much damage that many of the pecan companies just left. It destroyed so many pecan orchards that the pecan industry suffered so bad that most of them went north and east. Some of the major ones formed after Camille came in. Some newer ones tried to start all over again, and they done real well, but now they've all moved up into Georgia, the Carolinas, and places like that. Have took all the pecan industry up there, and now you can drive a lot of these country roads and all you see is just giant vacant pecan orchards. Most of them have been sold to realtors now. Houses are being built, subdivisions are being built in all these giant pecan orchards, and the sad part about it is all these pecan trees are just going to waste. Up the road from me here, where I live at, it's giant pecan orchards. They all just sit idle. The pecans that do come on the trees, wildlife eats them and stuff like that. Cattle and things are being raised underneath the pecan trees, and if you wanted them, people won't let you have them, you know, because they don't want you on their land. There's insurance liabilities and all these kind of things, and all this industry is just gone now from our area because of natural disasters that came in and destroyed it. The Tung Oil Industry was another one that was here. Hurricane Camille, before it, the tung oil industry was a big deal here. People had jobs, they gathered tung nuts. They were sold to the company up north of us up here, a big corporation. They took them and they made paint thinners and all kinds of things, products out of these tung oils. All different kinds of oils and stuff like that was made. And it's just getting cold out here. That's why I'm sitting here bundled up right ahead of this rain. It's cold. And guys, another industry is gone in our area here. And we talk about how much things are changing today, but guys, over the period of history, things always change. The climate has affected many things where we live at here. Nothing is like it used to be. When I was a teenager, I've told y'all in my earlier videos, I picked cucumbers in fields, and there was cucumber fields were everywhere. Wiggins was known as Pickle City, was the name of Wiggins, because we had the largest cucumber factory in the whole United States was right here. And I was one of the people who picked and had contracts with that company. We took pickles in there and we sold them, and they made pickles. Brown and I think it was Brown and Miller had it for a while, and they was just different companies. This thing was huge. Hundreds and thousands of acres of cucumbers were planted around here, and I was one of those contractors. And then all of a sudden, the blights hit. And when the blights began to hit, whether man-made or natural, I don't know, the blights came through, cucumbers began to die off, and disease began to start hitting the plants, the powdery mildews and all these other things that was never here before. And what happened was all the pickle companies moved to Mexico. And guys, a whole generation of people who had fields of cucumbers and planted them, and all the people who worked in the fields during the summers and picked all these cucumbers, the jobs just went away. These people had to hunt for work like me in other areas. We had to focus on using our land for something else. Watermelons was another big one. We used to have huge fields of watermelons here. I mean, they planted watermelons everywhere. I loaded watermelons as a teenager for these old timers we'd have 200 and 300 acre fields of watermelons, and they'd back in 10, 18-wheeler loads, and it was our job that day. We had to load all them 18-wheelers. We had to pick the watermelons and load them in these 18-wheelers with hay, and they would be shipped all over the United States. And that's all gone. Occasionally you'll see a watermelon field somewhere now, but nothing like what it used to be. If you see one now, it's just strictly for a farmer's market. There's not anything massive like it used to be. I'm just trying to think of some of the things that's changed. Cotton was another one. In the earlier days of my dad, everybody in my families, you either did one of two things. You either picked cotton or you were a logger. You know, and my dad picked cotton. He told me many times about, you know, his family were sharecroppers. Wanda's family was sharecroppers. Everybody picked cotton. They talked about how their hands would bleed and from picking the cotton and having to work in the fields all day long out there doing that. And then what happened was the insect called the boll weevil came in and destroyed so much cotton that they actually made it illegal to grow cotton below a certain parallel here in Mississippi. And I know here in my county alone, it used to be illegal to grow cotton here up until just a couple of years back from now. Now you're starting to see a few cotton fields pop up here and there. It's because they've used so many chemicals now that they've gotten the boll weevil under control, and they're now allowing people to plant cotton again. And it seems funny to drive down the road and see these white fields now, and these old vacant pastures that used to just sit there vacant for years and years. Some farmers came in and leased it, and he's grown a 20-acre field of cotton or a 40-acre field of cotton, and they're picking it now. So we are beginning to see some comeback, but with this comeback is coming heavy chemicals. You've got Roundup, you got dicamba, all these chemicals are coming back in, all the herbicides, all this stuff being dumped into the land again to be able to grow these things. And it's not like it used to be. It's not jobs for local people. They have big commercial people who come in and pick these fields and with big equipment, and they ship it all out. So there's still not really any jobs from it. You got a few people making money from it, but that's about it. Tomatoes was another one. Used to right up the road from me here, Campbell Soup Tomato Company, Campbell Tomato Company, not Campbell Soup, but Campbell Tomato Company used to lease several hundred acres of the land on the road where I live at here, and they planted tomatoes and people picked them. The tomato factory was on the other side of Wiggins, out east of Wiggins out there. They had hundreds of acres out there of tomatoes they planted. The big factory was out there. The blights came in, everything, the weather conditions came through as things started changing, hurricanes and all that kind of stuff, and they've moved all that now. Those farms are no longer growing anything like that anymore. Most of the buildings are all dilapidated and just falling in, and what's happened to most of the fields that was used for watermelons, cucumbers, tomatoes, and all that kind of stuff now, what has not been sold for subdivisions, the government came in through CRP programs and offered people money to plant it back in pine timber. And that's, well, I see the rain is starting here. That's what's happening to lots of the land that's done been planted back in pine timber now, which leads us to the logging industry. The logging industry was huge here when my daddy was growing up because of the ample supply of large, I'm talking about 4-foot diameter timber, 3 and 4 foot diameter timber was everywhere. And it was good timber. And these companies like Thinkbine, Dantzler, and all these companies came in, stripped the land. They literally stripped it. And once they got it stripped, they just let it go. They didn't pay the taxes on it, and there was people that came in, and local people came in, and a lot of them bought land here for 50 cents an acre, just paid the taxes on it. A lot of the old timers told me that they'd get 100-acre tracts of land and pay the taxes on it from picking up pecans or and selling them, or trapping, or whatever they could come up with just to pay the taxes on that piece of property. And that's how a lot of the land around here ended up being in families in huge tracts like they are. And the sad part about it is now the younger generations no longer want those huge pieces of property, and they're breaking them up and selling them to realtors just for the money. The land is just being, this place has turned into a retirement place around me here, my whole county. There's no survival here anymore. You see a good bit of cattle still around in some of the larger pieces of property, but that, even, my friend, is starting to suffer because of feed prices and stuff like that that's starting to happen. A lot of the cattle farmers, the older people, are dying off, and the younger generation is not wanting to do it. So a lot of the cattle fields are being broken up and sold in subdivisions and stuff like that. And, it's just amazing what is actually happening here where we live at now. And it's not just us here, guys. This is happening all over the whole United States. I look at the events that's taking place in our country. The citrus farmers over in Florida, I've noticed that many citrus areas, the hurricanes have devastated them to the point where it's blown all the trees down. A lot of these companies have gone in, they're taking the trees up, they're putting cattle back in that land. Industries are just changing. Climate is changing the way we live today. And when climate changes weather, through natural disasters, diseases, blights, these types of things happen, what happens is there you have the migration of people. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about this on Patreon. I'm going to be explaining more in depth of what's actually going on, why things are not producing the way they are, some of the things that we can expect to happen in the future here. You know, just going a little bit more in depth than what I have freedom to do here. That will be coming up pretty shortly on Patreon for those of you who are our followers on Patreon. I hope that you'll enjoy that. You know, I'm no older than I am. I have seen so much happen here where we live at, as far as things changing, industries going away, local markets just disappearing. I mean, big box stores have come in here. And in the town that I used to live in, there was lots of mom and pop grocery stores. There was lots of mom and pops, little stores here and there, parts houses, you name it. I mean, just hardware stores, all those kinds of things. The big box stores have come in now, and guys, they're all just going away. You know, there's no personal commitment one-on-one with anyone anymore. You go in somewhere now, and they pull a computer screen up, and they want your phone number, and you put your phone number in or your address, and your whole history is right there. Everything you've ever bought through the part house is right there, and it's just not like it used to be. You know, all the money you spend on stuff is going to some big corporation somewhere, and it's sad. It's really sad, and it's not going to get any better, it looks like, in the near future, because I'm seeing things coming up that there's going to be some massive changes by the time 2021 to 2025 comes in. There's going to be massive changes that's going to be taking place. And I look back to things like in Tennessee, in the Great Smoky Mountains, the blight that hit the chestnuts. I mean, these chestnut trees were massive trees. Some of these trees 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 feet in diameter in those mountains. The blight came through and just literally wiped out the chestnut trees. Well, when it wiped out the chestnut trees, it also got their cousins here called the chinkapin. We still can grow chinkapins here, but they get up to a certain size and they just automatically die because of the blight that's here. I've planted some hybrid chestnuts here, hoping to be able to maybe get them started back. And I know they're hybrids. They're a bred up variety, Chinese ones, I guess they call them. But guys, we've got to come back with something. I try not to put anything as a genetically modified tree here, but even the pine timber now, because of the pine beetles and all that kind of stuff, they have super trees now. These trees grow so fast, it's unreal. The fields across the road from me that I planted back in the year 2000, they're already like 40 feet tall and big timber. They've grown so fast because they were called super slash and super loblollies and stuff like that. These things, man is constantly evolving, and I hope y'all can hear me from this rain because it started pouring in rain. But guys, I'm sitting here looking at everything that's taking place, and people are beginning to freak out because of the grand solar minimum. They're talking about how that it's going to affect everything. Well, let me tell you, our lives have been affected all along. We just may not have realized it. Now, yes, the grand solar minimum is going to make it like 10 times worse than what it is. But the fact that things have been changing has always been happening. It's happened all through my life, and that's what I'm trying to bring to your attention, is the fact of trying to keep people from panicking when this stuff starts happening in this country, is that a lot of it is nothing new. Natural disasters, diseases and pestilences, and blights and stuff like that has changed the course of our land since the beginning, and it's just not anything new. We have to learn to adapt to it. This is why the Dust Bowl back in the early 19th century that took place. When that took place, the fertile fields out west became just dust, and people migrated from the Midwest into California and different places looking for work, looking for food, all these kind of things. The climate migrated and depicted human history at that point as to who could stay and who couldn't. Some survived, some was able to work through it and be able to survive, but many had to leave. And guys, it's not going to be any different in the future. As a matter of fact, I'm telling you, it's going to be 10 times worse, probably. So the point of Porch Time today is to bring to your attention that natural disasters, diseases, pestilences, and stuff like that, and blight has already been changing our history where we live at here in the South for the last 40 years, and it's fixing to get worse. So don't get too comfortable where you are. You may be one of those kind of people who have to migrate, because the problem today is everybody puts all their eggs in one basket. We go to college to learn one trade and one trade only, and when that trade is not available, then we have no skill to do anything else, and we end up on a government program accepting government benefits because we can't do anything else, because we devoted our whole life to learning one thing and one thing only. I encourage you, learn many skills. You're going to need them in the future. Oh, guys, porch time today causes me to reminisce about a lot of things that happened in my life, the things that I've seen where I'm at. And guys, look, I just scratched the surface. I haven't even told you most of what went on here. I just picked a few highlights, a few topics, a few things that I don't know, a few things to talk about. Another thing, Wanda and I the other day, when we went to her family's Christmas thing, and to the death of her aunt and all that, like an hour and a half north of here, we drove through the country because we like the country drive instead of going on the interstate. In an hour and a half driving, we saw probably thousands of residences in the country, but we only saw one. Get this. We only saw one garden, and it belonged to an elderly black couple, because I saw them out there. That's the reason I know. And the garden was probably 30 by 30. That's the only garden we saw in the country. We saw thousands of houses, thousands of farm places, thousands of just places where people live. One garden. And they were an older couple. No wonder we're going to be in trouble. I couldn't believe it. We just decided to see how many gardens we would see. One. In driving an hour and a half through the country. That's just not right. If there's no food on the shelves, oh my God, what are these people going to do? They're going to starve. It was only at that moment we was like, oh my, what just happened here? No wonder we're in trouble. Nobody knows how to do anything anymore, or nobody will do anything anymore to help themselves. They depend on the big box stores. No wonder the companies are getting rich. No wonder there's a strain on the food system. It just blew us away. I thought that was the most strange thing that we could just have happen. I mean, I was blown away. I told her, I said, oh, we'll see a lot of gardens. This is all country folk. Through here, you know, it's all country. It's the scenic route through the country. I told her, I said, we saw lots of pigs, and we saw some goats and cows, and chicken yards and stuff like that. And there wasn't a lot of them. Now, don't get me wrong. We probably saw 4 or 5. But one garden out of an hour and a half driving, guys. That woke me up. Now, there may be places in the country, I get it, where there's a lot more, but this particular route that we took through the country, I was expecting to at least see old gardens that hadn't been planted through the winter, but no garden plots. Everything was pretty landscaped yards, everything was manicured, everything looked you know, like a little storybook. Everything was manicured perfect. There was no just country looking home. And that shocked me. You know, so anyway, enough about that. It's raining. I gotta go feed my animals and stuff like that, and take care of what little garden stuff I have in the rain, and try to do what I can do to remain sustainable here at Deep South Homestead. So guys, I hope Porch Time today has at least been enlightening and help you not to freak out about what's coming in the future, because stop and pay attention to where you're at. And if you do, I think you'll understand that what I'm talking about is actually true, that natural disasters, climate changes of all kinds, blights, diseases, pestilences, and all that kind of stuff has moved industry out of your area. Look at a lot of the industries that's in your area, and talk to your parents or your grandparents if they're still alive, and ask them what industries were there when they were kids, and look at how natural disasters and things like that have changed the course of history just in the last 50 years. The next 50 years is going to be mind-boggling. So, guys, let me get off of here and get back to work. I hope y'all have a blessed day, and those of you who don't follow us on Patreon, we're going to be putting some videos up over there about in-depth stuff about what's actually going on, how it's affecting our plants, why we're not able to grow some things now. We're going to be putting that up on Patreon here shortly. So if you're not a subscriber to Patreon, go over there, check us out. It's only $3, cheaper than a latte a month, you know. Or Coca-Cola twice a week. You know, you can pay for Patreon for a month. And just check us out. If you don't like us, you don't have to stay. But I think you'll find out that there's a lot of information over there that's going to be good information, a lot of techniques, a lot of chicken butchering, turkey butchering, hog butchering is going to be over there, some different curing methods, some different things that are just into our personal life here that shows you what we do on a daily basis that we don't show on YouTube, or don't have the freedom to show, let me say. And guys, it just right now, it may not last, I don't know, but right now it's just a platform that we're able to be a blessing to a lot of other people on, because we've been asked so many questions about why we didn't do videos on this, why we didn't do videos on that, and it's just simply because, like I stated at the beginning of this video, I was going to use the topic separating the men from the boys, but I realized that if I did it, it would be demonetized, and because of the gender issue. And it's just for those very reasons right there as to why we moved over to another platform with other videos. So thank y'all for being so patient with me today and sitting here and listening to Porch Time. We really appreciate each and every one of you. You are a blessing to us, and I pray that we can be a blessing to y'all through the information that we give on Porch Time. Have a blessed day, and thank you from Deep South Homestead.